all right, I'm just going to work on my passion. And turns out my passion involves a lot of watching movies and smoking weed.
There's a difference between hanging out with funny people and actual comedians. That's a different thing than hanging out with somebody who is like professionally funny. Was the break more about burnout, or was there finances involved as well? Because it seemed like those music videos must have cost a fortune to make, and they would have a hard time recouping those costs.
It's great to be in touch with your fans, but you're also in touch with the scum of the earth. And I just got sick of those people. I couldn't see an end to it, you know? It was like, what is going to end this other than me just saying, I'm done? I mean, there could be other, like, sort of disastrous things that could happen, but why wait around for those?
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is TCU night, Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, and we are live on Discord, as always, with our beautiful, beautiful patrons, the Baby Gang, the Dumpster Crew, the Infantry, the $2 Tots. We recently had a $2 Tot upgrade to Dumpster Crew and then get one of our amazingly soft t-shirts, which we still have available. So
with the discount. Yeah, patrons get a discount, and by bumping up, you saved a few bucks. I was impressed with the double action on that one. That was awesome. It's the kind of thing that I would have been happy to do myself. Would have fist pumped alone at the computer after I did it.
I know. I didn't introduce you yet, Matt. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor. And if you don't know about Matt's like frugality, if that's a word, then I think someday. Then first of all, you're not in the Baby Gang. Because they know all about the frugality. And secondly, you know, perhaps someday we'll have an entire episode dedicated to your wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, that's right. So today I made sure the Baby Gang saw 5 pounds of gummy pumpkins for $8. What a remarkable value that was.
What is a gummy pumpkin? Just a gummy bear shaped like a pumpkin?
Yeah, I guess nobody buys them after Halloween. So the company is offloading them. $1.60 a pound is pretty solid on that. So 5 pounds of gummy items will last you a long time.
And destroy your gastrointestinal system like nothing else.
Possible.
It will just blast through your entire body cavity until nothing is left. But we do...
Once I help you save a few dollars on them, I'm not responsible to anything that happens after.
You walk away from the transaction.
Yeah, that's it.
You could at least offer up a toilet paper deal to help them out on the on the back
counterbalance
end.
it.
Yeah. But more importantly, we have a guest who I have been really hoping to get on the Create Unknown since day one, since season 1, since the first batch of 8 episodes that we did of this show, and it's finally happened. Today's the day. It's happening. We're here.
It's happening right now.
So without further ado, why don't you tell us, Matt, a little bit about our guest?
Yeah, we've got Mark Douglas, and Mark is a sort of YouTube Davy Crockett. He's one of those men who has a mythical professional life that encompasses a few very different chapters. And while we hope that Mark is decades away from his Alamo, whereas Crockett ended up in politics later on, Mark Douglas started there, but just barely. 14 years ago, Barely Political released its first video, and it was a banger. The 2007 Crush on Obama music video dominated the discussion of political campaigning and new media influence in the early 21st century. And its only real rival in media history is Lyndon Johnson's 1964 Daisy Girl ad, which was as remarkable for television then as the Obama Girl ad was for YouTube. Mark met Obama, collabed with Weezer and the Muppets as he helmed one of the world's largest YouTube channels in the early 2010s. He probably could have stopped there, but both Kevin and I are glad that he didn't. Without Barely Political, there wouldn't be a Vsauce. Michael Stevens got his start being hired as one of their editors. Barely Political expanded its productions into recurring sketch comedy formats like Superheroes in Therapy, Kristen Stewart attempting to explain things, and a whole lot of puppets. But then Mark moved away from political comedy into song parodies with The Key of Awesome. And he reinvented the channel along the way. He wrote and performed songs parodying artists like Kesha, Psy, and Eminem. And these videos got literally hundreds of millions of views. The channel pulled in over 3 billion overall. And despite that, by 2018, a complex confluence of factors, some legal, some financial, some personal, made Key of Awesome just not sustainable anymore. So Mark released a song that announced he was taking a break. Mark, we want to start by asking you, since it's been about 4 years since that last video, how's the break going?
Pretty good. I'm shocked. 14. Did you say 14 years ago was Crush on Obama? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting older, so time goes by really fast. But yeah, the break's been okay. I mean, COVID hasn't been fun. So, but it's funny. I know it. Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, I think. When you get to a point where you really just do need a break, it's just kind of like, it just kind of has to happen, And I think I spent the first year just kind of confused. And I had been, working so hard that towards the end, I really was not getting any sleep. And so it was sort of, I just kind of needed to sort of take basically where I'm heading with this is I had neglected my health. I hadn't been to the doctor in forever. I hadn't been to the dentist in forever. So the first year was just me trying, sort of getting organized again, because everything had just kind of gone. I was trying to keep the channel running while also doing a series, trying to keep content going, and then trying to do a series for YouTube, which why am I blanking? A YouTube original, which was based on one of my videos, Reggae Shark. So I had an animation team in one part of Brooklyn, and then my office in another part of Brooklyn. And I remember getting in Ubers and falling asleep in the Uber on the way to either office. So I just was not managing my time well. So I think I just slept for about a year, but then I've been getting some writing work here and there, and just basically chilling. But it's right around when I was all right, I'm doing stand up, I'm gonna get out there again and really gearing up to okay, you can't fuck around anymore, Mark. You got to get back out there. COVID hit, so just kind of, I don't know, just kind of Matthew McConaughey in it. LIVIN. I've been working on an album that's kind of I don't know if this is too much of an old man reference, but remember when Axl Rose had his Chinese Democracy that he was working on forever and ever
saga. Yeah. So every year was this is the year Chinese Democracy comes out.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't.
So I've got about 12 songs that I've just been writing and rewriting and fucking with that. I'm just I don't know if I'm ever gonna sometimes I just look at it and I'm this is just a giant mess. But it's funny what happens when you get rid of that deadline, that all important deadline that kind of gets me moving. I don't know about you guys, but well, kind of what I my sort of I don't know, MO, or my sort of working mantra was get yourself into a jam. And this was something that I was doing already, but then I heard Stephen Colbert kind of name it. He said, advice for young comedians. He said, book a theater for a show that you haven't written yet, for instance. Right. 3 months away or a month away, whatever. And that's what I would do. When I was in a comedy duo, we would do that. We would say, all right, we're going to do a show every month. We don't know what it is, but we would just have that pressure. And sometimes the whole thing would get written the week of, and sometimes it'd be a disaster. But after a while, we just had all this material from that process. And that's kind of the same thing that YouTube was for me. Just kind of well, we're promising a video every week. Sometimes there was one point where we were doing 3 videos a week, which I don't know how the hell we did that. But some of them were not of great quality, I guess. But yeah, trying to make things actually funny, actually have some kind of production value on YouTube. Things that were up to my own standards ended up being, pretty taxing on the old system after so many years. But yeah,
after a billion
the
videos.
long rambly answer.
It was a lot of videos. If you go on the channel right now, you just scroll for days at the amount of content. Do you think that perhaps, first of all, is the album a comedy album? And then second of all, where's the artificial date to release it so that you force yourself to finish it?
Well, that's what I need to do here. I need to declare that the album is coming out. But see, the thing is that process of getting myself into a jam really got me into a jam after a while. Mm-hmm. So I'm scared to go back to it, I need to figure out a better process for working, and it's almost like it just sort of took all the air out when I sort of was all right, I'm just going to work on my passion, Mm-hmm. And turns out my passion involves a lot of watching movies and smoking weed, but there really does need to be some outside pressure, some outside force that makes me actually finish things. Mm-hmm. One day I'll figure out how to do it without that. What's that?
Do you think you would respond well to a threat? Like if Kevin assigned a deadline to you, it's October or November now. So what if he was if you don't have this album ready by January 1st of 2022, I'm personally going to come and stab you. What if he committed to a sufficiently dangerous threat?
Yes.
Well, I'd probably, be motivated by that. But then around December 23rd or so, I'd be well, where are you going to stab me?
Right.
Is it
going to be surface area? Yeah.
Can you just get a fleshy part?
Right.
It's not, but I think that would probably be I would say maybe you could threaten me right now with demos for all the songs, maybe finished demos.
Seems fair.
That I could probably pull that together.
Yeah.
But the problem with I think I noticed about with comedy is so say you have a shoot on Friday and everything's ready to go and you're done, but you're gonna keep coming up with shit, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you're gonna keep wanting to replace things. I mean, especially if it's the kind of nice thing about music is that it was locked in, but at times I would go in and record a quick demo of a new line and say, all right, lip sync to that. So a lot of times if you look in the behind the scenes videos of our old videos, and you hear the playback, it's my voice, just kind of blah, blah, blah. And the actors lip syncing to that. And then when we would get the good singer in, they would basically ADR to the take. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'd have really, really shitty demos to work with, and people would be listening to terrible demos of me kind of singing late at night, whispering to not wake up my wife in the other room. But anyway, as a return from Tangent City, yeah, I don't know. It's probably, I don't know if it's the age or the weed, but I totally forgot what I was saying.
Well, I was going to say, as far as you always coming up with ideas, is I've seen you do that on the spot. That is one of your comedic superpowers, is being able to always do that. So, I mean, at some point you have to just kind of create that deadline and say all right, these are the jokes for this thing. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing. Cause I know how you work. I've seen it. You're always coming up with something funny. It's like an endless wellspring. I think I told you, Matt, years ago, the first time that Mark, you and I hung out, I think I remember telling you, Matt.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I think I remember telling Matt, oh, there's a difference between hanging out with funny people and funny friends and actual comedians. There's levels to this that you don't really know. You could have the funniest friend who just cracks you up all the time. That's a different thing than hanging out with somebody who is professionally funny.
Well, sometimes the professionally funny people aren't that funny in person, actually. Sometimes it goes so far that they're just like kind of quiet.
Can you throw anybody under the bus who's not funny, Mark?
Who's
in real
not
life?
Funny? Who's not funny? Well, I don't know. A lot of people, I've just met people who write for like TV that are, their work is really funny, but they're not like, they're not ready to perform. Yeah, they're not like ready to get wacky. That seems
like a different talent for sure.
Yeah, but they're definitely really funny on the page, but they just don't have that like silly, hey, everybody look at me kind of gene. Which that was kind of the thing with me where I started to like, I always had that to a certain degree, the sort of, hey, everybody look at what I'm doing. And I think after a while that started to kind of fade. Like, I think I had proven myself. It's like once you've like written like hundreds of sketches and hundreds of funny songs and stuff, you're kind of like, okay, I think I'm funny. Like there's evidence out there. I don't have to be as much like when I wasn't doing comedy, when I was just like, or aspiring to do comedy. And I was just like the funny guy at work. I was probably really funny back then. You know what I mean? Because it was just all coming out. I didn't have anywhere else to put it. So I would just annoy people I was working with and whoever I was working for. But then like once you have a place to put it all, you become a little bit more chill just in everyday life. But yeah, I mean, it was really fun. Like when kind of I don't know, there was like a mid period of when we started doing the Key of Awesome, and I had Brian and Todd in there almost every day. And like, I would just come to work and laugh every day,
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of came about like all of it became what you were talking about earlier. It's just all about problem solving, and some of that comes from improv training. And some of it just comes from, I don't know. I always felt like I had a lot of ideas, like I was bad at editing, like I was bad at a lot of things that the YouTubers are good at, but I never seemed to like run out of ideas. And so I sort of felt very confident about that skill. So, I mean, so that's, and then kind of doing it every day, you're just always kind of warmed up. You're always trying to fix things and fix things on set, fix things in the edit. It was almost kind of like a point of pride when something would get really fucked up, like an actor's performance just wasn't there, and we were able to fix it in editing, and then somebody was like, "That guy was really funny." I'm like, "No, he wasn't." But you're constantly solving. You're constantly trying to like make something up to snuff to put on your channel, So it was kind of like, it was very rare that we didn't at least kind of get it up to the minimum sort of requirements. And that was all really fun trying to do that every week.
How do you think that YouTube has changed over the years when it comes to comedy? Because when I look at what things were like and what was popular, I mean, it's like this with anything, but
yeah.
To me, I've said several times on this podcast that the internet has gotten so funny that comedy is almost not necessary anymore. Not the way that it used to be. Like it just isn't. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why you've seen, like the late night shows become more like politically focused to give themselves kind of like an angle, because like the comedy stuff isn't enough anymore. And it's not that way with anything. I feel like the when Barely Political was crushing it, College Humor was crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Funny or Die like landed on the scene with a huge splash with like The Landlord and that whole thing with Pearl. It's just so funny.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like over the years to me, people don't need like carefully constructed and produced comedy anymore, because there's just they'll just kind of
find it on subreddits and shit.
Subreddits, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, memes,
my Twitter feed
and
is just
accounts.
All stuff that makes me laugh.
God, there's an account that my wife sent me called We Memes, and it's just video after video that's essentially like a Vine compilation of people getting injured or like falling or things, going awry. And then it's the same song that plays where it goes like, wee!
Oh, yeah.
Wee! Wee.
Yeah, I think
so
that sounds
funny.
familiar. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's like the lowest effort thing almost imaginable, but it's hysterical. So it's like, where does putting 1,000 hours into a sketch fit anymore?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it just has to come from within, you know. you just really have to want to put that shit into the world, I think. I mean, there certainly was motivation to do certain types of content. You know, I certainly wouldn't have done, I mean, the song parodies after a while started to get kind of annoying because it's just, it was like the tail was kind of starting to wag the dog a little bit too much. And, you know, I might have done one parody of One Direction if I just was, you know, based on just pure inspiration, like, hey, let's make fun of those guys. I probably wouldn't have done like 4 or however many we did, but you're like, well, that other one did well. But then you're sort of like, okay, what else do I have to say about this boy band? And after like the 4th one, it's like, you know, this guy, this 40-year-old man really has a problem with this boy band. Like, you know, like,
wow, this guy hates this boy band.
So, and you're like, no, I don't really. So then you're sort of drafting off of their success. That's when I felt like I was really drafting off of other people's success to make my thing. I didn't like that feeling, you know?
That's interesting. No, I hadn't considered that.
Like, I wanted to do things that were just sort of more original, or, you know, you make enough song parodies and you're kind of like picking on whatever you can sort of do. And the way that we did it was considered fair use. So in order for it to be, I mean, I haven't talked about this in a while, so I might not be the authority anymore on it. But the way that you do fair use parody is that you have to definitely comment on the artist. So like something like Eat It is not fair use. That's repurposing. But if you're but something more like the one that Weird Al did with Smells Like Nirvana, that was a little more fair use because he was talking about Nirvana and not taking the Nirvana's music and putting it to something else.
Right.
So all roads kind of lead back to Nirvana. He's acknowledging that. But I don't know. I think so we kind of had to do it like that. And so you're almost like forced to sort of shit on people. By just like, I'm trying to be fair use. I'm commenting on the song. What am I going to say? It's awesome. That's not funny. But after a while, you know, and I would try to do more original songs and pepper those in. And I started to realize how fucking hard it is to start from scratch. You know, I'd kind of forgotten how hard it is to start from scratch with no melody, no chords, no nothing. And I started to be like, well, you know, I do have some respect for these artists. You know, I don't want to. And then I would start seeing other people kind of doing a Key of Awesome type of thing, and they would just like really shit on the artist. And I was like, well, that's not even true or fair, you know? Like, I always tried to make my criticisms things that were fair, you know? It was like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like, think, you know, just try to make sure you're I don't know. Has anybody ever like ragged on you or done an impression of you and it's just not very good, and you sort of feel like, wow, you didn't even put enough effort in to I don't know, that was a very lazy impression of me. But when somebody really gets you, you think it's funny because they spent some time on you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I would try to be with it, with anything we did. But after a while, I started looking around, and the internet was just sort of littered with people commenting on other people's shit and picking other people's shit apart. And it's still kind of like that. And I just didn't want to be that guy anymore, really. Even though I was doing more than just picking it apart, I was trying to like make my own piece of art out of it. It sort of started to feel like, I don't know. I started to sort of feel like a hater, I guess, or in that category at the very least. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I'm not answering your question. Yeah, I mean, comedy on YouTube, comedy on the internet, you're sort of getting it from all different places. I don't know that you necessarily go to like one trusted source for your comedy anymore. Is it just sort of like, you'll just be on TikTok and then next thing you know, you're just laughing your ass off from some random thing. But some I forget who did this. a comedian friend of mine just tweeted, my favorite comedian is memes. Like, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of
Right.
how it is now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like, I laugh
That's
at
exactly it.
cats on the internet probably just as much as I ever laughed at Steve Martin or Eddie Murphy. You know, same
It's
same
completely
level.
decentralized.
But it takes a lot of
Like,
cats. You know, a lot of cat aggregation to equal one Eddie Murphy. Like
But
that's
you can still
that's
still
like-
get all those things.
that's just scale
you know?
to see how funny you are. How many cat videos are you funny? Like how many?
if somebody had to make a straight up trade,
Yeah,
they would forego
exactly,
X
like-
number of cat videos
like
to see
how
your
many-
1 hour of comedy.
Exactly. Like how many funny cats does it take to replace Hannah Gatsby? Maybe one. Like I don't know.
I don't know where you were going with that. Why,
I'm just
of all
saying for me,
people.
for my taste, I don't think she's funny. But like I was just
I
trying
was
to think
dividing
of
up cats, like getting fractions of cats in my head and what they'd look like when you had like 15% of a cat.
look, I'm trying to stay on brand with Vsauce here. And how many cats?
Well, I got a real quick question about the difference between sitting down and writing what you want to write, whether it's a joke or a song,
mhm.
versus having to be responsive to topical things, because a lot of people make a really good living out of that. I mean, anybody who writes for a late night show, they don't really know what's going to, which jokes are going to be in the monologue until
Right.
they wake up the day of it. Right. And they probably rarely get to do that. And they must thrive in having that opposite. What's the difference between the type of funny person who is comfortable doing the reactive stuff versus the ones who really want to do their own, original stuff?
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to like just comedy in general, I think you're always going to have a little bit of that responsiveness. I mean, even SNL will have, it's like they dedicate a certain amount of time to original characters, but ultimately they still have to do the news and they still have to like be current, So I think you're never really going to get away from that completely, especially if you have an ongoing show of any kind. But I think I don't know. I think it's a nice. I always felt like I kind of needed to be doing both for them to for either one to be good in a way, because it was like generally I'd be working on two things at a time. Like I'd usually have two, whether I was working on if I like would have a sketch and a song, I'd be bouncing back and forth between those all week. If it was like a writing week, it's like when one feels kind of still, you go to the other. But yeah, I think I mean, I wish I could just do evergreen stuff because, then you can, go out and keep playing it. But then, sometimes when we would do live shows, you'd be like, oh man, this was all about last year. This was all about, I'd want to do this like Adele parody that was like really popular, but it was all kind of like time stamped to last year. So, I don't know. I think it all comes from the same place. I don't think there's anybody who can't do one. I mean, actually, I kind of, as I've been saying, I kind of think that I'm better at the responsive stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like I have a hard time choosing like what's really important that I have to like get out. What's the thing that I really need to talk about? And also, you cultivate an audience, and after a while, it's like one of the song I was working on a song today that I just think is funny, and it's like a Motorhead sound alike about old ladies playing bingo, and that just I don't know, it just made me laugh, because because it gets pretty. I used to go to bingo with my grandmother. It can get a little competitive there, and it just thought it'd be funny to see old ladies playing bingo to like a Motorhead song. But I wouldn't necessarily want to put that on the channel for, the people that want more, One Direction parodies or Kesha parodies or whatever, because it would just sort of be lost on them. But yeah, I don't know. Most of the things that I just kind of wanted to do, I knew would not get any views. or just a fraction of it, you know. So when I would occasionally do something that was just an original idea that would sort of go viral, that was and it would be helped by having those other, you know, being couched within all those huge parodies. But we did a thing called Reggae Shark, which is an animated thing, and I was really proud of that just because it was like an original idea and it was hitting kind of the same numbers as some of the parodies. So I wasn't drafting off of anybody else's successful thing, you know. But I don't know. I think you kind of have to have a balance. I mean, everybody's you kind of have to be relevant, right? So,
well, you mentioned fair use stuff earlier. What were some of the weirdest cases that you got threatened legally over? Because the only one I remember was there was one video where I don't even think it was a song parody. I think it was one of your sketches, and somebody hummed "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And they threatened to sue you over that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got like a thing. It was like the lawyers of Steve Perry, Tom Scholes. I was like, wait a minute. Is that Journey? Yeah, I'm trying to remember what happened with that. And I remember, like, I think Michael Stevens was in the room when we were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh yes, because clearly this person humming it is going to replace buying the album." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, like that's a point people never bring up." It's like, and I think some of the old, because the younger artists didn't give a shit. You know, newer artists for the most part didn't give a shit. Whether or not their record company gave a shit is another thing. But older artists like Journey, just, you know, would go on YouTube and see people using any piece of their thing and just be like, "Fuck this!" You know, we're used to getting paid for our music. What the hell? What are they thinking? But yeah, I remember that one. What else happened? I think I just got pretty good at figuring it out. But I had a lawyer to most of what happened was I was constantly like sending versions of things to a lawyer and having to argue with them first. But once I'd go through that process, but it's funny too, because you would think, okay, this is the most fair use thing I've ever written. And then you'd send it to them and they'd be like, "No." And you're like, "Why?" And then sometimes by the time you're done kind of making all those fixes, it's not funny anymore. So
that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my questions. It seems like kind of a comedic mood killer to have anybody approve the thing that you've made. It makes me think of all sorts of artists having to submit things to Soviet censors and then deal with what's left when it comes out. And maybe it's a couple little tweaks and maybe it's substantially changed to the point where you hate this thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I think, you know, kind of going back to what Kevin was saying before about the difference between being regular funny and professionally funny. Being professionally funny is like, yeah, but can you still be funny under these circumstances? Can you still somehow eke out something funny with all this pressure, with all these people breathing down your neck, with legal restrictions? Do you have enough ideas that you can, you know, fix the problem, but still have it be as funny as, you know, what you originally thought? And usually it wouldn't be as funny as the thing that you really wanted to do. But if it turned out pretty funny, then you've kind of done your job as like a comedian, I guess, or a professional comedy writer. So I always kind of liked those challenges in a way, because it was like, I could still be fucking funny with these restrictions, you know, fuck you,
Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Or just, you know, sometimes you just try to, like, you know, you have a curse word in there and you really just try to get it out of there because it feels like a cheat somehow. I don't know. A lot of it, I don't know. I think when people watch a TV show that's not funny and they're like, "I'm funnier than that shit," it's like they have no idea all the hoops those people had to jump through to make something that, you know, even made sense. So,
yeah, Patton Oswalt had a bit a million years ago about this when he was talking about writing for Mad TV. Actually, it was this exact same conversation that you're talking about, where his example was that he wrote some skit and he used the word moron, and the censors were like, you can't say that. It's like offensive to like people who have low. Yeah, that's the punchline of the joke. Yeah, it's like, who are we upsetting? Morons? But like literally, that was one of the notes or whatever for one of his skits for Mad TV.
It was a medical diagnosis for many, many years.
Moron?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm talking probably like 1890s,
I know like imbecile
around the turn of the
is,
century.
but like I didn't know
Same
moron
idea.
was.
Yeah, it was the same idea. And eventually, like, the British are always better at making something sound cheerful when they're really trying to be rude or negative or something like that. They had this designation, like, your son is dull normal.
Wow.
So just dull normal, and that was kind of a Forrest Gump level of how the IQ test came in. So, not in serious trouble, but, not outwardly 180 IQ either.
Yeah, they always come up with fancy names. Like Americans came up with dumbass. Like the Brits didn't come up with like, I feel like everybody's kind of like that now. Nobody is an idiot. Nobody's an asshole. They're like a sociopath. Everybody's got like wants to diagnose people. But it's like, maybe
you have to attribute some personality or mental issue.
It's like nobody's
just using
a dummy anymore. they're
pejorative or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that
just
makes comedy
break out
hard.
the DSM-5 and go through to insult people.
When they said, that could be offensive in that sense, I'm like, okay, who's Googling who the oldest living person is? Because there's one person who's like 117 years old who was diagnosed 100 years ago with something, and they're still burned up.
The 117-year-old moron. the last of the morons by James Fenimore Cooper.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
But that gives you insight into how that crap works.
One year at the Webbies, I was doing like a live performance of one of our songs, and it was this song called "Eat It, Don't Tweet It." It was like right when people started, like, it was a big deal that people were taking pictures of their food,
Oh yeah,
on Instagram and stuff. And so we just made a song about that. So I was going to do it live, and I had a line in the song. It was like, "I love soup, don't call me a Nazi," something, something, something. And it was kind of like it was sort of done in like a Pet Shop Boys kind of style. It was like, "Oh, I love soup, don't call me a Nazi. I'm more like a culinary paparazzi," was the line. But there was we were running through it, and they said, "Can you take that Nazi line out?" And I was like, "It's not really any, And they said, "Well, there's a Holocaust survivor that's going to be sitting in the front row."
What?
So I was like, "Oh, okay, well."
Oh my God.
But just when you said the oldest moron, it reminded me. This guy wasn't a moron, but
Ben, our editor producer, his fingers are starting to sweat thinking of how he could edit the last few minutes of tape together.
Oh, okay.
to just ruin you.
Now it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's talking about how he hates ponies, and the grandma there's like, "I had the pony. I loved that pony. Am I the only one that remembers this?" And he offends her terribly, and then she dies like that night. He's like, "Did you think it was the pony remark?" I think it was in like season 2 of Seinfeld. It's the same exact scenario.
Or there was a Curb Your Enthusiasm where somebody was a Holocaust survivor, and then there was also a guy from the show Survivor, and there was some, I don't know, I can't remember how it was played out, but it was funny. But
I remember that guy had a tattoo on his forearm, but it wasn't that a Seinfeld thing where the guy had the tattoo, but it was like the lottery numbers he won with or something?
Oh my gosh. I don't remember that. That must have been Curb.
Yeah, that sounds a little more. When it's when it's much darker, it's a Curb.
Probably Curb, yeah. Yeah.
Oh God, I just hope it exists at all, because if I just
You just leaked your funniest comedy bit that you ever came up with, and now it's going to be stolen. Well, I brought up the fair use thing because I didn't know whether or not there was some story where you're like, Lars Ulrich showed up at the office one day and was extremely angry about our Metallica parody, and he threatened me with a drumstick. I don't know if that story was out there and I just didn't know it.
I don't think so. I think yeah, I mean, that's the only one that was actually, I think now that I'm remembering it, the Don't Stop Believin' it was like, it was one of the videos that we did have to take down, I think, because it was the Black Eyed Peas parody.
Oh.
And I think we actually did like a sound alike. It was like a fake, which I prefer doing those things that are a little bit more, it's like a genre parody, or it's like, it sounds like a song that they haven't written yet,
Uh-huh.
Those are more fun and challenging anyway, but we had done that. And the whole concept of it was that like, what's his name? will.i.am was decided that there was some overcrowding in the Black Eyed Peas. So each member had to come in and re-interview for their job. So it was like, what exactly do you do here in the Black Eyed Peas? Because there was like a couple guys that would just go, yeah, and like, and so I think there was a part where they were like, no, but we write songs. We're songwriters. Like you need a chorus. Here's one. Don't stop believing. Oh, it was Don't Stop Believing because we're dancing on the ceiling. So it combined two things, and they thought that was songwriting.
When Steve Perry tries to take down this podcast now, since you've hummed it kind of,
so it was only half
that's
a
when
Journey.
we asked him to be on the show.
It was only half a Journey song. So yeah, it was like half a Journey song and half a Lionel Richie song, but Journey was still pissed about their half, but didn't hear from Lionel Richie.
No,
but yeah, that was the one.
He didn't even say hello.
That was the one that we took down. No,
I was gonna say he's too busy.
I just want to
sculpting.
unplug my microphone now.
I was fine. I didn't mind it. Hey, somebody's got to make. I'm rusty here. I don't. I'm not as funny as I used to be.
Was the break more about the burnout and being over it, or was there finances involved as well? Because it seemed like those music videos must have cost a fortune to make, and that they would have a hard time recouping those costs.
Well, yeah, and especially with the risks of, now, like there's some of them they're just demonetized. I can't get them. You go in there and you have to go in and explain in YouTube in the back end, explain why it's fair use, and sometimes they'll reverse it, but there's a lot of the biggest ones that are that I'm not making any money from.
Oh,
but there's still
it takes a lot of time, even when your case is strong, to detail that, follow
exactly.
it up.
And
it really is weirdly intensive. And the people who do commentary type videos or film, like films, where they necessarily have to use samples to talk about the thing that they're talking about. It's almost a full-time job to just deal with those claims and strikes and figure out how to edit your video in such a way to minimize them. It's nightmarish. And I don't think a lot of people realize how important that is to the process.
Well, yeah. And so it did sort of become like that, because I was trying to veer away from song parody because of the risk and because, they were so expensive. But we couldn't really, we still kind of had to do some of it to keep our audience. And so I just think I ended up having too much to do, like to try to veer outside of it. Like I was saying, when I was trying to do the animated thing, which turned out by the time it was done, I was just like, I was happy that it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Honestly, because my expectations for it, because it's just, there was so many compromises. I remember I was thinking like, oh, animation, that's the way to go. You don't have to deal with all this production, and then animation just provide, just has so many problems. You have so many delays with that too. So it's not, you can write, Reggae Shark eats a mountain and then shits it out. And, you could write all that, but somebody still has to do that, has to draw that and animate it. And they'll be like, we don't have time for that. Can you come up with an alternate thing? Anyway,
No.
I was getting these brand deals and trying to sort of, make money to keep going while keeping the channel going. It was just too much to do. But I think we sort of we started doing song parodies in a time when people we were sort of doing it under the radar. And the only reason I started doing it is because I looked around and I was like, wow, people are, I was already writing funny songs, and the Key of Awesome kind of started without us doing any full-on song parodies. Like we would do kind of like the sound alike. And then I don't know, I think I saw there was a bunch of parodies out that like had millions of views, and there was a couple people doing it. And I just thought I could make something so much funnier than this. If all I had to do was parody. So then I just tried one, which was the Kesha one. And that's the one that has, over 100 million hits. But, so kind of just like, once I kind of went down that road, it was like, well, we sort of have to keep doing this to a certain degree. But yeah, people weren't as litigious. Record companies weren't hip to what was going on, I guess. And then after a few years, they just started claiming everything. So I had already sort of like established, this is our brand. This is what we do. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Weird Al does it, but I guess he started in, I guess, a little bit more of a traditional space, where he had like a record deal.
He always gets permission from the artists.
Mm-hmm.
I know that part. Like I've read interviews with him about that.
Yeah.
Did he in the past?
Yes.
Like all the way back to the beginning he did?
I believe so. Yeah,
I
believe so.
I don't know if
maybe
like
not.
My Bologna or Another One Rides the Bus, got like when, back when he was just like on his accordion.
The Dr. Demento days
the Dr.
or whatever.
Demento stuff. He probably didn't do it then, but I think once he had established himself and had like a record deal and stuff. I don't know, but it was something that I kind of fell into. I think Weird Al has a little bit more of a passion for song parodies, and I must have somewhat of a passion for it, but to do that much of it, but it wasn't like the end all be all for me,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Did you feel trapped by it after a while?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just because you want to, especially once you get to the point where you have employees and the success of the channel depends on how, whether or not you can pay your people. And once I was at the point where I was actually running things, then it was like, well, we have to, we got to keep trying to get these, multi-million hit videos coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got to feed the monkey. But yeah, because I'm watching the videos and I'm like, okay, prop department, a place to store the props, locations you got to shoot, the song itself, and the musician, you're paying a director to shoot the thing. I'm like, this is adding up really quickly.
Well, I directed, so I didn't have to do that. One of the things, it's funny, I noticed like Weird Al would always just play the person that he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
like some version of Michael Jackson or whatever. And I was always like, I don't want to do that, especially when we started doing like Justin Bieber and stuff. I didn't want to be like, old
Bieber.
Justin Bieber. At a certain point, people.
I'm waiting for the Mark Douglas as Billie Eilish video. That's the one that I need to see.
That's the one that got away.
Yeah, it's funny. There's been a few
the bad guy parody.
I love. I love not knowing what's popular anymore, music wise, because I just felt like I had to listen to so much shit to keep up with current music. But every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, we probably could have done a good like Lizzo parody or definitely Billie Eilish. We could have done, but I have a thing with Billie Eilish where I kind of wouldn't want to pick on her. I feel like people pick on her and she's just a kid,
Yeah, it's so funny how nice you are and how that's kind of like a problem for you. It is. It's like a restrictive thing, part of your personality, where it's like you actually feel bad making fun of these people, which for a long time was your job.
Right. Well, it's like I grew up in a very like ball busty kind of family, very like Irish Catholic. It was almost like I grew up in a tough room, So I'm just kind of used to that. But I think now I feel like there's less of a ball busty sort of culture in the world because everybody's really sensitive, and I don't want to complain too much about it because I don't want to be the old guy like, man, my day. You could rag on people, but you kind of could.
Right. But it's true. Well, that was one of the things I wrote down was like, all right, how many videos has Mark privated in the last 2 years? Because there's some joke in there that he's afraid somebody's going to pick out.
Only one.
Really?
Yeah. It was for a parody of the song called Pumped Up Kicks. And we were just kind of fucking around with ideas for it. And this was a little edgy on the fair use side too, but it was like puffed up lips just kind of fit. And I was like, okay, well, that a lot of women, when women get like lip fillers and they just have this like duck face. I just am always like, why?
Like
how
2 days?
How much worse did like thin lips look that you would put a fucking duck bill on your face? And then we were also saying like, and then people, when they get their eyes done, everybody ends up looking Asian. So we thought that we had this idea that there was a doctor who was an Asian duck who was giving everyone in Hollywood plastic surgery. And it was just, so we had this duck puppet, and he kind of had a voice that was maybe a little offensive. And
right.
It was kind of like, it was similar to like the Kim Jong-un in the South Park.
Team America.
Yeah, it was kind of
World
a similar
Police.
Voice. And I just, there was just something about it that I couldn't really like get behind anymore. And I just was like, I don't even want to deal with, with this shit, with having to defend it. It wasn't worth it to me to have to sort of defend it. It's weird. It's like everybody thought it was funny at the time, and it was definitely on the edge of the line, maybe stepping over just slightly, but that's kind of what you want. But then the line is moved. So I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't do that voice, at least, not in public.
If you were making the same sorts of videos now, would you factor that into the things you came up with, the things you wanted to release? Not just, is this funny? Does it pass all the tests that videos had to pass for years? But would you think, would there be a survivability test that you would apply that's like, is this going to be a problem in 2025? What are the odds of that?
Oh, I'm so glad I'm not doing it now, because I don't want to say it would be impossible, but it kind of feels like it. And towards the end, I started kind of like, I remember getting in a sort of, pissing contest in the comments section with somebody about, we did this Taylor Swift parody and she had like something happen where some guy like touched her butt and she ended up suing him or something for like $1. Like she ended up winning, and then she just she sued the guy, but it wasn't about the money. So she only really ordered him to pay $1 because he had like touched her butt at some event. But she wanted everybody to know that this guy was a scumbag, right?
Oh, I found this. Taylor Swift wins $1 in groping case against DJ David Muller. It's crazy.
So I had just said, as sort of a larger line in the song, it wasn't even the main punchline. It was just a funny thing to say on the way to the end of the punchline. It was like, "Don't touch my ass or I'll sue your ass," and blah 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 blah. It was kind of like just like a, I don't want to say clever line, but it was just a thing I threw in there. And then there was a bunch of people that were like, well, one person started it, and then the fucking lemmings come in afterwards. But it was like, oh, real funny. You're making fun of sexual harassment. She was sexually sexual assault. I was making fun of sexual assault. And I was just like, and then what always, would upset me is in, the comment section would be like somebody with a bad take on your video, and then a lot of other people with the same shitty take. would start to get really disheartening. So I was like, all right, I'm going to pin an explanation of this. Like I wasn't making light of that. It was just something that she did. I actually thought it was kind of cool that she did that. And I just mentioned into the song, but I would never make fun of sexual assault. And I had this really pretty well plotted out. It took me a long time and it didn't do any good, really. People were like, yeah, fuck you. You're still. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? Why? I didn't even want to make this fucking thing. I'm just doing it because it was a hit. And I think that was a moment where I was kind of like, I don't want to have to like defend myself for something as dumb as this, for something that I'm not that passionate about anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we had a whole episode, last week's episode, discussing William Osmond's video titled "I'm Done," where it's about negative comments and it's about kind of like the effects that they have on you. And one of the things that I thought in response to that is, and I don't think that he doesn't get it. He doesn't mention this, but this is something that I thought, and it's exactly what you just illustrated, where it's not that you can't handle the negative comments. You can, but it's like when the negative comment is this like putrid turd covered cherry on top of this like garbage sundae. Yeah. It just is the straw that breaks the camel's back.
And then when other people agree with it, that's the part that was really disheartening to me.
And it's this string of like poop cherries just on your turd sundae. And that's when it, to me, and this, I'm not speaking for William. I don't know. This is just for me. It's a scenario in which I thought about, which is very real, where it's like the bad comment is not necessarily the beginning and the end of the problem. It just ends up being like the little tiny pin drop straw that snaps that camel's back, that sends you over the edge. Yeah. And now you're like really upset because you were like teetering on the edge of like exhaustion and frustration and all these other things.
Right.
And then somebody's like, how could you do this? And you're like,
Yeah. And honestly, that's not like I was really, that Taylor Swift example is just one example that I could think of, but there was other things kind of like that where, the thing that I didn't like about YouTube, and, it was great. It's great to be in touch with your fans, but you're also in touch with the fucking scum of the earth. and I just got sick of those people. But I never was surprised that Trump won. I don't think any YouTuber probably was surprised that Trump won, because what's out there. That there's large groups of assholes like that are really dumb.
Well, I was just gonna say it's essentially like you are already exhausted. You put so much work into this. It's not even really what you want to do. And then on top of it, someone says you're a bad person.
Right.
It's like, all right, this is not worth it at all, because I was already feeling like this process wasn't worth it. And now I'm being called a bad person on top of it. Like this really blows.
Yeah.
That's
Have you considered just not being a bad person?
Well, that's the real question, and why I wanted you to be on this podcast, Mark, is have you considered not being a bad person?
I was listening to a little bit of you guys talking about Norm Macdonald and people just not understanding what a comedian is anymore.
Oh, right.
And it's true. I think do we even want to talk about Chappelle? Should I even touch that? But him, for instance, like I don't agree with everything he says. You know what I mean? There's things that he says where I'm like, I'm gonna kind of wait for the next funniest shit thing that he says. You know what I mean? And I have no problem with that. But like at a certain point, when you see something that's a joke in print, as if it's like a manifesto or something, or like he said it like he was like Hitler or something in a rally. But it was a fucking joke. It was a joke that you didn't think was funny, but it was still meant to be a joke, for Christ's sakes. And just sort of holding people, I don't know. I think whatever like cancel culture and everything is people like Harvey Weinstein. I'm glad that people are getting.
Yeah, he's a criminal. He wasn't canceled. He was arrested.
That's true.
There's a distinction that has to be drawn there when people bring him up as like
opinion issue.
But I'm just saying that what the good side of quote unquote cancel culture I would say kind of probably led to us being rid of him, maybe. So there's a good side of it, but there's people that like when you go on TikTok or something, and there's a handful of people who will be like, celebrities that you didn't know were pieces of shit, and I end up watching those, but I don't have any respect for the person making that content,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a weird thing where it's just like, I don't know. People have such a fucking hard on for calling people out now that they make entire brands out of it. And I think that's kind of like bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, people are just professionally smashing their glass houses. They're just throwing stones constantly.
Well, yeah. Like I saw something where like the woman that organized the walkout at Netflix had all these racist tweets from years ago. It's like, I don't know how anybody thinks that they're beyond reproach anymore, or that they're gonna, like, how do people publicly, like, I don't know, admonish other people when the internet is, I don't know. I mean, like, there's so many things on the channel that if somebody really wanted to like cancel me at some point, if I hadn't already canceled myself, but they probably could have done it. You know what I mean? Like the video I was just describing, people, that was exhibit A that I'm racist for some people already, which was why I was like, I'm not going to get in an argument about this. I'm just taking it down. And, I think Jim Jeffries had a bit about it where it was like, basically exactly what I was saying before. It was like the line was here, and the comedian's job is to go up to the line, maybe cross it, but sort of dance on it. But now the line's here, and you're calling him out for something he did years ago when the line was here. And that, I think, is bullshit.
Right.
So yeah, it would definitely be a lot harder to do it in this environment. And, to a certain, aside from being burnt out, there was a little bit of when some of that shit was starting to happen, where, people are accusing me of things. There was a little bit of a feeling of like, I'm taking my toys and going home, this isn't fun anymore, kind of. And, but, I needed the break. What are you going to do?
That's perfectly fair, though, to just stop when you want to stop.
Yeah.
And that
I just couldn't see an end to it. It was like, what is going to end this other than me just saying I'm done? I mean, there could be other like sort of disastrous things that could happen, but why wait around for those?
Kevin, you must have thought along these lines at some point. It's like, hey, at a certain point, I will turn the camera off for the last time, and I'm not going to make any more videos.
Yeah, for sure. But Mark is totally right about like when is this going to stop kind of feeling is weird, because it is that treadmill. And I've, referred to it as a treadmill plenty of times, because my God, does it feel like that? It feels like you're on this hamster wheel, just chasing, the algorithm carrot at the end of the stick. And you're right. It's like, okay, either I get off the hamster wheel or I stay on. It's almost this sort of binary decision. Have you thought at all about doing something where you do upload every now and then just because you feel like it? Or is it just like, this is out of my system completely?
I think like I feel like I could probably, it wouldn't be enough to probably, I don't know. I think like making one big video a month would be cool, maybe. But I don't know if that would be enough. You know what I mean? Like comedy, you need a little bit more juice. I don't think that would be enough to like sort of bring back the audience either, But, that's what my hope is, that like when I finally get done with some of these songs, my Chinese Democracy album, that I can, start doing that and kind of just have it be all evergreen stuff for one. That is definitely the idea for these other things, because, most comedy like has like a shelf life of like yogurt, so when you get something that you feel like might be funny for a few years, it's like, oh God. So I definitely would focus on that more now. And but yeah, it's funny, for the longest time all I wanted to do is sketch comedy, funny songs. But I feel like the funny songs definitely falls under the umbrella of sketch comedy for me. I thought of them as sketches that rhymed, you know?
Yeah.
And for the longest time, that's all I wanted to do. And then, you know, once I kind of got free reign to do that, you know, I went at it pretty hard, and it's kind of weird to be on the other side of not wanting to make a million sketches, you know? So I'm like, what do I want to do now? So,
yeah, I think that's a healthy place to be, though, in a lot of respects, because I think about this a lot with, I guess, with YouTubers in general. I mean, that's the focus of this podcast. That's mostly where I spend my time, but of just like getting things out of your system, you know, that seems to me like a healthy thing. And not, there's this trope, you know, where you see these aged rock stars still trying to squeeze into like their leather pants and perform for, you know, the New York State County Fair,
right.
Their hit from, you know, Cherry Pie, you know, let's play Cherry Pie again, Warrant. Let's just, that's the go-to song here on the Create Unknown. Like that.
And I thought we'd peaked with offensive comments earlier.
Oh my God. We did one
it's like, you don't want to be that though, Mark. You don't want to be squeezing into your leather pants at 65 and still like teasing your hair out, right? Unless you really want to and you love to, and that's fine too.
I definitely got tired of, like, I used to just love playing dress up, like that part of it. You know, I was like, this, like a lot of times when we'd be shooting stuff, I was like, this is all just an excuse to play dress up. And you know, at one point I was like, I own more wigs than 9 drag queens, like just from all the videos that we fucking done. And then after a while you sort of was like, I don't know if I want to play dress up anymore. Like you just kind of get tired of it. But then if you're not going to be in your videos, that's another actor you got to hire. And you know, that was the other thing too. Like when we had sort of backing, I paid every actor that came in and out, you know, a lot, because I could, you know, as I know what it's like to be out there doing shitty acting work for no money. So it was kind of like, then once it was like, okay, now it's, I own the thing completely, you know, it was kind of hard to be like, can you do it for free now? But,
right.
But you know, that's another part of the quality, you know, that's another thing. Like, when a video or a movie or anything is bad, it starts to be like, well, what did you skimp on? You know, like we always had really good actors in our videos. So, and I was proud of that. But, you know, you do kind of have to pay them especially if you're going to like need them for a couple of days. You want to pay them just enough to make it worth their while. So it was a bummer to like not have that as much, you know, once I was kind of like running things myself. But
I just got a DM that somebody didn't want to put in the episode chat. They said, ask him what he did with the wigs. Do you still have all the wigs?
We had like a massive, like kind of yard sale almost. Like we got rid of, I mean, I feel kind of bad now. We got rid of like about 10 years worth of props and shit. You know, I still have some things that like mean something to me, but it was just so much shit that I just was like, I got to get rid of it. I was ready to just dump it all in the Hudson River. Like, you know, just because I was so done with it. But like every once in a while I'll be like, I'll think of like a jacket or something that I need, or, you know, Halloween rolls around and I like, you know, think about, oh yeah, I don't have any of that shit. Like for, you know, pretty much since I started at Barely, I never bought a Halloween costume. Like I could just go into our costume, to all the costumes we had, and throw together a Halloween costume. And like there was a couple of years where I like won contests at the parties that I was going to because we had such good costumes to just grab. Like,
oh, that seems unfair.
I know. And now we don't have any of it. So like,
if there's somebody who spent 7 hours on their makeup to be the Joker that's listening to this, like seething because they got second place to your costume.
That's right.
Yeah. I went as like a Khal Drogo one year, and it was all based on shit that we just had. Like, oh, we got a fur thing here, and we got, you know. But
well, I have two things real quick. One, Jake Roper from Vsauce 3 fame just dropped by to say that he loves you, Mark.
Hey.
So
I haven't talked to him in a while.
get that out there. The second thing is I really wanted to put a pin a little bit on my rant about leather pants. First of all, okay, if the Rolling Stones still want to perform, then God bless them. They should. However, conversely, I think there's also kind of like a beauty and a grace in something that I'll reference a Vsauce 2 video. There was this man, Edmund Gettier, who came up with this thing called the Gettier problem about whether or not you can actually know something. You just have to watch the video. It's called You Don't Know Time, if anybody wants to look it up. Okay. But
I don't remember much about that.
Okay, so this will be new to you, even though you researched it. So I'll remind you of what you found.
I'm sitting here feeling bad that I hadn't seen it, and you're like, I worked on it. I don't even remember.
I wrote it, and I don't know what Kevin's talking about. So Edmund Gettier came up with this like paradigm shifting, amazing way of redefining what it is to know something philosophically, and then afterwards never wrote anything again. He never wrote another paper. He never wrote like an article. He never wrote like a poem on a napkin. He never wrote anything again after this like groundbreaking thing he wrote. And when asked,
by the way, I have to point out that it wasn't a 900-page manifesto that explained everything. It was like a 3-page article in a journal that brought forth something new. It was this tiny little thing as far as academic research goes.
Yeah, that's
like you wrote it on the back of an envelope.
That's the joke. Is the ultimate mic drop because he's asked afterwards like, hey, why don't you write something else? And his quote is something along the lines of, I have nothing more to say. and
I respect that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's like a beauty and a grace to that, to completely shake the world and then just say, okay, and walk away and I'm done. Like that's pretty cool, I think.
The only thing that I do feel a little lame about this is that like, I went to acting school and was kind of like, it was pretty tough. I was, I kind of went in with no experience and there was all these like kind of superstars there that, there's always like the few people that everyone's like, oh, he's going to make it, And
who made it? Somebody make it?
Pretty much me. But
you made it.
No. But I would run into those people from time to time and they'd be like, I'm not acting anymore. And I would, still plugging away at, comedy or whatever. And I always felt kind of proud of myself as like, it's not necessarily about how talented you are right out of the gate. It's about how much you want to do it and how long you're willing to stick it out, So I that's the only thing I sort of feel like I really admire the fact that you're still going, you guys are still, you haven't quit.
Still squeezing on those leather pants in 2021 on Vsauce 2.
I don't know. Exactly. They still,
but Kevin,
they still
you've worked
fit,
hard to avoid that by changing things up.
Changing my pants.
Yeah.
That's right. If you were on episode 551 of Mind Blow, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
I know Phil DeFranco has talked about this pretty openly, that it's been somewhat of a grind at times, just having to do that same type of thing. Well, Phil's kind of locked into a certain type of content, and you've reinvented to a middle ground that satisfies the current audience and hits a little bit of a new one. And it's hard to accept that you have to do that. It's hard to, we know how long it takes to find that thing that you still feel good about doing. That, okay, if it's a solution that you absolutely hate doing, it's not much of a solution. It's not going to last.
Yeah.
So getting to that perfect balance is really not easy to do. And if you can even come up with an idea that satisfies in the first place, so people definitely struggle with that.
That other people like. That's
right.
The hurdle number one. But yeah, just for me, I don't like the idea of being in like a creative Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all right, here we go. Time to churn out, time to make the donuts.
But then all you got to do is think about the fact that somebody has to actually make donuts for a living.
No, they don't.
Somebody loves
That's
to
why
make donuts
Dunkin'
for a
Donuts
living.
got rid of donuts. It's just Dunkin'. Now it's just
Oh, that's
making the
true.
coffee.
Yeah. But I'm
Nobody
just
eats
saying,
donuts anymore, Mark.
Some people really are on a hamster wheel, literally.
Yeah.
And they're offended by your comments, by your comparisons to what you're doing.
Well,
Like, you don't know what it's like
that's
to
life.
actually be on this hamster wheel. So, whatever.
Everybody has their own personal hell with that kind of thing, I think.
For sure.
But it's, that hamster wheel aspect. I mean, I think of it like any machine where parts just wear out.
Yeah.
And that, we almost never see this anymore because things stop working before they actually wear out.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a tractor that was made in the 40s that they were touting it as, this is going to be your grandson's tractor, and things like metal parts just get friction and wear out along the way. Because I was thinking how burnout just isn't, everybody talks about burnout constantly. And I'm like, this is not everybody. There's a repetition fatigue that is more about wearing out specific parts than this big umbrella of burnout covers. They're two different things. And I've never been able to express that, come up with a word or phrase where it differentiates that little bit of fatigue. But it happens for so many people. We just talked about it happening for William Osmond for different reasons.
So you think they just need to replace those parts and there wouldn't be burnout? Potentially?
I think it's possible sometimes. I think it's possible sometimes. And Mark, I was going to ask you about this. Is there something that you could have shifted, maybe, let's say 2017, something like that, where I don't know what it could be, but it's like you're doing less songwriting. Let's say there's somebody as capable as you to do it, and you're overseeing more of a general creative, or maybe you like production and you want to nail that production part, but not do the others. Is there anything shift like that would have, if not solved problems, made them a bit more bearable?
Well, that was what I was attempting to do. But I found that I was just having a hard time like scaling what I did, I just could never find like somebody. I could find people who could write and maybe get it to about 50% of what I wanted it to be, but then I'd always have to sort of take over and I still ended up having to do a lot of work. And we also, we were trying to do smaller videos where we were calling it the key of unplug, where it was just couple acoustic instruments, and we parody the song and then have like a little screenshots from parts of the actual video that we were referencing. And those did okay. But one day I was just like watching a couple of them in a row, and I just thought about, like, as a fan, I'd be disappointed in this. If I wanted a full video, like what I used to do, and then all I got was this, I feel like I would be disappointed in that. And I started thinking, are we just going to keep getting smaller and smaller? And if so, I'd rather just stop and come back smaller than have it. You know what I mean? But I never really figured out how to kind of get somebody to do what I did, so I could figure out business.
Scaling the artistic side.
I could just never.
It's a nightmare.
I could just never figure it out. And there was really talented people that I worked with, and I don't know. I think you probably, when somebody tries to do that, I think all you can hope for is maybe 60%, that they'll maybe get like 60% of it there, because they're just not you, and they're not going to have the same, like, I don't know, standards, I guess, or they've got their own life, They're
not going to work themselves to the bones until the marrow drips out of their toes and they have to collapse.
Yeah. They're empty bones.
Empty bones.
Right.
Douglas.
So I think, that was it sort of took that was why, when it was the idea of trying to get outside brand deals and things, it was like, oh my God, like I'm having a hard enough time just doing this, And I guess what I should have done was not be afraid to let a few weeks go by without a video. That's probably where I screwed up a little bit, because I just, I felt like I just wanted to keep the content flow what it had been while trying to pursue these other things that I wanted to do. And I just didn't have enough bandwidth.
Yeah, you can't do everything. I mean, that's something Matt and I talk about all the time, actually, with the amount of projects that we have. And we'd love to put 100% of our effort and thought into them. And it's like,
but you don't want to neglect. You don't want to.
I don't have 400%.
Right.
I have 100%.
And I just had a hard time neglecting the thing that got me there. Neglecting the platform that I had built. That was the whole reason anybody knew who the fuck I was. And I mean, I'm older than, most YouTubers. And, just the fact that I had people that gave a fuck what I was going to write next week was a huge thing for me. I mean, that took me
a lot of people
years to get to that point,
Millions.
And to sort of be like, I'm going to go work on this other thing. Fuck the channel for now was really hard for me to do. And I just I was never comfortable with it. But
too nice.
I probably should have. Yeah.
Again, too nice.
Too nice. Yeah.
Well, I know that we have questions from our patrons that they have been dying for us to ask you. Okay. So Matt, if you want to pull those up and fire some off.
Yeah, we have a few here. Trying to think of how to order these best. Conrad asked about the shift in content that we've talked about on the podcast many, many times, about how all of a sudden we've got TikTok, we have YouTube Shorts, little bites of 60 seconds as opposed to making some epic production on YouTube. Has that changed your thinking at all? Is that appealing at all to think, well, hey, maybe I could do some quick stuff on TikTok?
No, the idea that definitely taking it back to sort of, I don't know, what I used to call Little Rascals level production, just kind of slapped together stuff. I definitely see the appeal of that, just kind of because comedy works when it's cheap a lot of times, when we started off, our videos were a little, janky. And then, just sort of to be competitive, and we had a little bit of a budget to play around with. And, around the time that there started to be these MCUs that were, throwing money at content, a lot of people's content started to look really good and really sleek. And so we were just like, well, let's make our stuff look better, and let's use this experience to figure out how to actually film stuff in a professional way. But ultimately probably should have just stayed with the janky version, because that's a lot more doable and sustainable, and it's funnier in a way when shit falls apart, when stuff is kind of slapped together, or can be funnier,
Yeah,
Conrad points out that parodies and reposting songs is a significant percentage of TikTok at this point in time, and
right.
It's interesting to see something that you were doing a while back, and not very many people could even attempt that. And now it's expected if you're 15 with a TikTok account.
Mm-hmm. Well, and every time there's a new, not that TikTok is new, but every time there's a new platform, I'll see some kind of song parody situation. And I just think, well, people just haven't caught up to that yet. People are pretty soon, these people that are doing this are going to start getting their shit taken down. They're going to start getting sued. That's the same thing that happened with YouTube. It took a while for the music industry to sort of go, oh, wait, we could probably be getting some money over here. So every time I see that on, TikTok or wherever, I'm like, it's only a matter of time before this is all going to come crashing down for you. or going to be a real pain in the ass to continue.
Yeah, it happened on Twitch.
Yeah.
With the music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Baseweight, who anybody who listens to the show with any frequency knows that the theme song that we use is one that Baseweight made called "Created in the Unknown." It's amazing. It's right at the top of every episode with the intro. Baseweight wanted to ask you about music and how you push through or get over a creative slump in music.
Usually, I'm kind of in one right now, so I'd actually like somebody else to answer this question for me. but
has that happened before? I mean, have you had periods where where you were just in the doldrums with output?
I think it comes down to, you know, a lot of it would come down to those deadlines, you know? So even if it's not the pressure of like, I have to finish this song so that I can put it out for the world to hear on Friday, some kind of imposing some sort of deadline. Like if you have a trusted, you know, friend whose opinion you respect, a fellow musician, or in my case, I have, you know, a few people that I started with in comedy, like Brian Olson, who worked for the channel for a while. You know him, and we're sort of each other's like, I don't know, person that we talk to when we're like batting something around. Like, is this funny? Is this worth it? And you know, I have people like that for music too. It's like, if I have something that's in kind of a demo situation, I'll send it and be like, hey, does this sound like it's ripping off somebody else? Or what do you think of this? And you know, I think kind of like letting somebody else hearing it and having the deadline, like, I'm going to show this to Joe on Friday and Joe's going to get mad if I don't, you know, because sometimes creativity, especially in comedy, and I imagine so with music too, doing too much of it by yourself is kind of like trying to play catch with yourself. You need to get somebody else in there to throw the ball around with, I think.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. I've never heard that before. It's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Give me 1 second to get, there we go. Yeah, so this is from Gusau, and this is just such a good one to end the questions on. What's something in the past week? So today is Wednesday. It is TCU night. You've got from, I guess, last Thursday to all day today. What's one thing in that time period that made you laugh?
Last Thursday to today. Well, I was talking to my friend Brian, who I just mentioned. We were working on something, and we were kind of working on like a kids show idea, but like I just thought the idea of like a character of a kid who is like, you know, sometimes they'll have like I'm a kid reporter. You know, it'll be like a fun sort of just, I don't know. Sometimes they'll have those on TV, like kid reporters, and it's always kind of cute and stuff. But the idea of like, what if there was one of those kind of kids who just was like, I'm just doing fluff. You know, I need to do something serious. And he just becomes like an alcoholic and has a real crisis of conscience. You know, almost like did you ever see Network? The guy's like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Like a kid who is, you know, like whatever, Fed 9 up. Or something. And he's just like, this is just fluff. I just thought that was a funny idea for a character. And we kind of laughed about that for a while. But I'm sure I laughed at a bunch of cats more than that, though, on the internet.
Well, I like this fed up child news anchor.
Yeah,
character.
what am I even? Yeah, like what am I even doing? Kind of character.
Just reassessing everything at 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody balding from stress in the 4th grade because of their news. That's just funny to me. Yeah,
because it kind of reminded me of one time we were talking about. There was kid president, and then we were like, where's kid vice president? Like, his kid vice president is just like,
tired of kid president. Is the
kid secretary of defense would be amazing. getting the 4th grader to solve like international problems.
I really think that they didn't do enough with that kid president thing. I want the whole kid cabinet.
I don't know.
He's probably not a kid anymore
because he can't be. Yeah, he can't be young anymore. Well, so he's 17. Probably
going to go into politics.
Looks like he hasn't done a tremendous amount in the last. Oh, he did a TED Talk in 2018.
Oh my God,
that's what Wikipedia has a link to, but it's a dead one. But So he pulled some additional stuff out of that in the last couple of years.
Good for him.
That's right. Well, Mark. Look, man, I think that I will follow up with this violent threat about this album. So first I'll have to get a knife. I don't really have, I have like butter knives, but that seems like it would just be like cruel
that would be
to
worse.
Even try to like puncture you with a
that heightens the threat.
It does, I guess. It would be
a lot. Knife.
Wouldn't be a clean entry into your side.
What was that Alan Rickman in the Robin Hood movie was like, I'm going to eat his heart with a dull spoon, or cut out his heart with a dull spoon.
Yeah.
And the guy's like,
That's me,
why dull? Because it would hurt more, you idiot. Anyway, sorry.
As the sheriff of TCU land, it is my job to hold you accountable because, we're big fans.
Oh, thanks,
and
man.
look forward to this Chinese democracy project that you've been working on. It sounds like a good one. I'm looking forward to hearing it. So the pressure has been applied. It's on SD card now.
All right, I gotta go. I got work to do.
No. All right, man. Look, Mark, thanks so much. If anybody wants to take a strip or a trip down memory lane, check out Barely Political and laugh for the next. I don't know.
Actually, we ended up changing it to the Key of Awesome, by the way.
Oh, officially, it's the Key of Awesome. Okay, go to the Key of Awesome and just spend the next 6 months of your life watching all of those videos.
Yeah.
Mark, thanks so much
to distract
for joining.
Thanks for having me.
It was great to have you. A long time coming. And again, look forward to your future projects.
Me too.
On your break.
All right.
Awesome, man. We're out of here. We'll see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every single month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders. Linus, our newest. Trevsdead, Boromir, Bot Dogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. And thanks to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria Marco, Sheep, Tom Videogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer Dan Yosua and producer-editor Ben Webster. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme, and to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.